He begged her to come watch him sing. She said no, then attacked him for playing video games. She didn't want to go. Not because she was tired. Not because she had plans. Not because anything was wrong. She just did not want to spend time with her husband. And when he came home, instead of even pretending to care, she went straight for his throat over a video game. That moment right there tells you everything you need to know about where this marriage actually is. So let me take you back to the beginning of this story, because the video game argument is just the surface. This is a man who has been slowly starving for 2 full years, not just physically in the sense of a dead bedroom, but emotionally, socially, in every way a person can feel invisible inside a relationship. 20 years of marriage. 25 years together. And somewhere along the way, his wife just checked out entirely and apparently never felt the need to mention it or do anything about it. There was no conversation. No moment where she sat him down and said something is wrong, or I am struggling, or I need space. She simply withdrew, quietly and completely, and left him to figure out on his own that the person lying next to him at night had already left the building in every way that actually counts. Let us talk about what 2 years of nothing actually looks like in real life. He can count the number of times she has kissed him on one hand. And he is very clear that those kisses were not the kind that say I love you or I missed you. They were the kind of kiss you get from a relative at a family gathering. Polite. Obligatory. Completely hollow. Picture that for a moment. You reach for your spouse, or maybe you have stopped reaching entirely because the pattern has trained you not to, and what you get back is the emotional equivalent of a handshake. No warmth. No lingering. No sense that the other person is even present with you. For a married couple in their 40s who have built a life together, raised children together, shared a home and a bed and presumably 1,000 ordinary evenings, that is not a rough patch. That is a fundamental collapse of intimacy, and it does not happen overnight. It builds quietly, day by day, small withdrawal after small withdrawal, until one person is basically living alone inside a partnership. Until the silence at the dinner table stops feeling temporary and starts feeling permanent. Until you stop expecting anything different and just learn to carry the weight of it. Now here is where today's specific events matter, because this is not just a story about a couple drifting apart. This is a story about a man who actively tried. He had somewhere to be. He sings the national anthem at a racetrack, which is honestly a pretty cool thing, and he invited her to come along. Think about what that invitation actually represents. It is not a grand gesture. It is something smaller and more vulnerable than that. He was offering her a window into something he does, something he is good at, something that gives him a sense of pride and purpose. He was saying, here is a piece of me, do you want to see it? He was not demanding she stay the whole day. He was not making it into a big production. He just wanted her there. He wanted to share something he does, something he is proud of, with the person who is supposed to be his partner. And she said no. No reason. No alternative plan. Just no. Think about what it takes to say no to that. Your husband has access to a racetrack facility. There is a free lunch involved. You have literally nothing else going on because the kids are away. The house is quiet. The calendar is empty. You have every opportunity to show up for someone who clearly still wants you there, who still thinks to invite you, who has not yet stopped trying despite 2 years of receiving almost nothing in return. And you still cannot bring yourself to spend a few hours with the man you married. That is not tiredness. That is not stress. That is a choice. A very deliberate and very loud choice. And the silence of that empty afternoon, the hours she spent alone in that house while he went and did something meaningful without her, says more about the state of this marriage than any argument ever could. He went anyway, did his thing, and came home. And you would think, maybe, just maybe, she might have felt a small flicker of guilt sitting alone in that house all afternoon. Maybe she would replay the invitation in her head and feel something. Maybe she would greet him with something warm, or at least neutral, a simple how did it go or even just a look that acknowledged he existed. Maybe there would be a moment of softness, of recognition that she had passed on something he offered her in good faith. Instead, she came at him immediately about a video game. A racing game. Something he bought for himself, in a household that is financially comfortable, to pass time that apparently nobody else wants to fill with him. She walked straight past the emotional reality of the day and picked a fight about a hobby. Here's what kills me about that argument. She called it a childish hobby. She said he needed to find grown-up interests. But what exactly is the grown-up alternative she is offering? Sitting in silence in the same house? Passing each other in the hallway without making eye contact? Watching separate screens in separate rooms until it is time to go to sleep? Because from where I am standing, the most childish thing happening in this marriage is not a man playing a racing game after a long day where he performed at a public event and came home to an empty greeting. It is a wife who refuses to engage with her husband on any level, who has opted out of intimacy and companionship and shared experience, and then gets annoyed when he finds something to do with himself. She does not want to fill his time. She just does not want him to fill it either. That is not a partnership. That is a cage. And that is when he said it. He told her that if she actually expressed interest in spending time with him, he would not have to resort to video games. And look, I understand that in the heat of the moment that can land hard. It is the kind of thing that cuts because it is true. It is not a cruel thing to say so much as it is an honest thing. And sometimes honesty in a moment of real frustration feels indistinguishable from cruelty because it does not leave anywhere to hide. She left the room. She could not handle it. Because somewhere underneath whatever wall she has built up, whatever distance she has decided to maintain, she knows he is right. She knows that her absence in this marriage is not invisible. She knows he feels it. And having him say it out loud, plainly and without apology, was probably the first time in a long time that the truth took up space in that house. But here is what I want to sit with for a second, because I do not think this is just about one bad afternoon. 2 years is a long time. 2 years of no affection, no intimacy, no shared time that is not kid-related or logistical or purely functional. That means this has been building through holidays, through weekends, through quiet evenings where he probably sat on the other side of the couch wondering what happened to the woman he married. Wondering if he did something wrong. Wondering if this is just a season that will pass or if this is simply his life now. That kind of prolonged uncertainty is exhausting in a way that is hard to describe from the outside. It is the loneliness of being present and still being invisible. Of being in the room and still not being seen. That is a kind of loneliness that is almost worse than being actually alone, because you can see the life you used to have and you cannot touch it. He is not wrong for playing video games. He is not wrong for wanting a hobby that fills the hours, that gives him something to look forward to, that lets him exist in a space where he is not constantly bumping up against the cold wall of someone else's indifference. When someone is emotionally starving, they find ways to feed themselves. They find small joys wherever they can. That is not immaturity. That is survival. What I also want to acknowledge is that this man has not given up. He still invited her. He still walked through the door wanting to reconnect. He came home to the person who rejected his invitation, and he did not come in cold or distant or retaliatory. He is not checked out. He is hurting. And there is a profound difference between those two things. A checked-out person stops trying. A hurting person keeps showing up, keeps extending the hand, keeps leaving the door open even when it has been shut in their face more times than they can count. That difference matters enormously when we are thinking about what this relationship actually needs and whether it has any real chance of finding its way back. She needs to understand that what she is doing, or more accurately what she is not doing, is not passive. Withholding affection, refusing shared experiences, shutting down intimacy for 2 years without explanation or effort or even the basic courtesy of acknowledging that something is wrong, that is active. That is something she is choosing every single day. Every morning she wakes up and decides not to reach for him is a choice. Every invitation she turns down is a choice. Every evening she lets pass without warmth or connection is a choice. And at some point a person has to decide whether they are choosing the marriage or not. Because right now it does not look like she is. He is not wrong for what he said. But I want to be honest, that comment was not going to fix anything on its own. It was a pressure valve releasing after 2 years of compression. What actually needs to happen is a real conversation, probably with a professional in the room, where both of them have to say out loud what is going on and what they actually want. Because maybe she is struggling with something she has not found words for. Maybe there is grief or depression or resentment buried underneath the withdrawal. None of that would excuse 2 years of silence, but it might explain it. And explanation is where repair has to begin, if repair is even still something both of them want. Oh, and for the record? Grown man singing the national anthem at a racetrack and playing racing games in his spare time? That is a full, interesting, self-sufficient person. The only thing childish in this story is refusing to show up for your partner and then throwing a fit when they find joy somewhere else. He is not the problem here. Not even close. She lied about the sick kid's treatment cost and nobody knew what was really happening in that house. She came home to a house that looked completely normal from the outside. The same front door. The same quiet street. Nothing to suggest that the world behind that threshold had been completely hollowed out. But the moment the door opened, everything was gone. Her stuff. Her son's stuff. Every document, every belonging, every trace of the life she had been quietly enduring. The furniture, the clothes, the small framed photos that make a house feel like something more than 4 walls. All of it. The family had moved, and they had moved fast. And that right there is the moment this whole story shifted from complicated to something none of them saw coming. Let me give you the full picture, because this update is dense and it moves fast. It started with a Reddit post about a sick kid and a donation request that something about felt wrong. A husband and wife who were being pressured by family to contribute to a fund for a child's medical treatment. The number being thrown around was $250,000 in out-of-pocket costs. They hesitated. They pushed back. And the family drama that followed was exactly as ugly as you would expect. But here is what the original post did not know. Here is what nobody knew. The husband behind the fundraising push was not just trying to cover medical bills. He was drowning. Not in medical debt. In gambling debt. $550,000 taken out against the house the moment he got his hands on it. Credit card debt. Money owed to people who do not send friendly payment reminders. And then, because a gambling problem does not disappear just because you throw money at the hole it dug, another $100,000 in fresh debt stacking up on top of all of it. The actual medical cost for the child's treatment was around $125,000. He doubled it when he approached the family. He was trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, pay for his son's treatment and quietly clear his latest round of debt at the same time. Think about what that calculation looks like from the inside. Your child is sick. You are also buried under $500,000 of obligations to people who are not patient. And instead of separating those 2 crises and handling them honestly, you fold them together and dress the whole thing up as a medical emergency. You weaponize your son's illness because you are out of other options and you are terrified. And if nobody had pushed back, if this couple had just written the check, that money would have evaporated into something that had nothing to do with a hospital. That is a level of desperation that most people will never fully understand. When debt reaches a number that large and the people you owe are not the forgiving kind, the mind starts doing things to survive that it would never do otherwise. It starts rationalizing. It starts measuring the harm of one lie against the harm of what happens if the lie is not told. It starts treating the people closest to you as resources instead of human beings. That spiral is real and it is ugly, and understanding it does not make it okay. Not even slightly. They reached out to the cousin after spotting on social media that her husband was out of town. She met them for coffee, then invited them to the house. And the moment they walked in, something felt wrong. She was on edge. Uncomfortable in her own space, in a way that was hard to name but impossible to miss. The kind of uncomfortable that sits in a person's shoulders and lives behind their eyes. The kind that goes beyond an awkward family situation and into something much heavier. She was careful about what she touched. Careful about where she sat. Like someone who had learned to move through their own home without disturbing anything. When she finally broke down and told them everything, the financial picture came out in pieces, slowly at first and then all at once, and it was staggering. But the money was not the worst part. The update does not spell it out directly. It says there was something else going on in the household, something that requires a trigger warning, something the writer says you can probably figure out if you think about it. And when you put together a woman who is visibly on edge in her own home, a husband with mounting debts to dangerous people, a child in the middle of it all, and a family that mobilized to get her out within 2 hours, the picture becomes very clear. This was not just a financially chaotic household. This was not safe. 2 hours. That is how long it took the family to get her and her son completely out. Imagine the controlled urgency of that. People arriving with boxes and bags and a plan, moving through rooms with purpose, not panicking but not slowing down either. Every personal item. Every document. Every piece of evidence that they had ever lived there, gone. No trace left behind. And when the husband came home to an empty house, the silence that met him was not just physical. The wall of silence from the entire family was absolute. Nobody told him anything. Nobody broke ranks. Nobody so much as texted him back. He got nothing. He tried everything. He went to every family member he could reach, knocking on doors, making calls, working through the list of people who might feel guilty enough to give him something. He showed up at their gated property and made a scene at the security checkpoint, the kind of scene that probably felt powerful in the moment and looked exactly like what it was from the other side of the gate. He called in a welfare check hoping the police would confirm where they were, hoping that official pressure might crack open what personal pressure could not. And at every single turn, he hit a wall. The family held. The security team held. The police came, assessed what they were actually looking at, and that was the end of it for him. This is what it looks like when a family actually shows up. Not the polite kind of showing up where people offer thoughts and prayers and casseroles and then go home and feel good about themselves. The real kind. The 2 hours, no questions asked, we are moving you right now kind. All the drama, all the years of family politics and tension and difficult history, none of it mattered in that moment. The flag went up and they moved. Now the cousin and her son are staying in the guest house. They are somewhere safe, somewhere quiet, somewhere that is not structured around managing another person's volatility. The lawyers are handling the divorce. There is a strong chance of full custody given everything that has come out. The house is already in foreclosure territory from missed mortgage payments. His job could be next if he keeps spiraling. And the child, the little boy at the center of all of this, is getting his treatment paid for directly through the hospital. Not through a middleman. Not through a fund. Directly, verifiably, to the people actually doing the work. Everything that looked wrong about this situation was wrong. Every hesitation, every question, every moment of discomfort this couple felt when they looked at those numbers was their instincts working correctly. Every instinct that told this couple to slow down and ask questions was correct. The only thing that was not wrong was the child needing help. And the moment they could separate that need from everything else that was being tangled around it, they acted without hesitation. He showed up to their gate raging, with nothing left and nowhere to go, and he got to watch security enjoy the quietest, most satisfying job of their week. I want to say something clearly about the decision to slow down on the donation, because in the original post there was a lot of guilt around it. A sick child. A family in crisis. The pressure to just give and not ask questions. That pressure is real and it is designed to be overwhelming. When someone puts a suffering child in front of you and asks you to open your wallet, the instinct to help is not a flaw. It is a human response. But asking questions was exactly right. Demanding transparency was exactly right. Because if they had handed over $250,000 based on nothing but emotional pressure, that money would have gone into a hole with no bottom, and the child would still be sick, and the cousin would still be trapped, and none of what happened next would have happened. The money is not what saved that family. The refusal to be manipulated is what saved that family. Because that refusal forced a conversation. That conversation led to a visit. That visit led to a woman sitting across from people she trusted and finally telling the truth about what her life had become. Because that refusal opened a door, and behind that door was a situation that desperately needed to be seen. This man tried to use his dying child as leverage to cover gambling debts owed to dangerous people. That is the sentence I keep coming back to. Not because it is surprising that desperate people do desperate things. But because the child was real. The illness was real. And he was still willing to make his son a piece in a financial scheme rather than just asking for help honestly. He is going to lose everything. The house, the marriage, possibly custody, possibly his job. And I do not feel sorry for him. I feel sorry for the little boy who is going to grow up piecing together what his father actually was. I feel sorry for the cousin who had to live inside that house and figure out how to survive it quietly. And I feel enormously relieved that the people around her moved fast enough to matter. The right call was made at every single step. Ask questions. Hold firm. Show up when it counts. Pay the hospital directly. Build the wall, let the security dogs earn their keep, and let the lawyers do the rest. That child is getting his treatment. That woman is safe. And the man who tried to manipulate both of those things into a financial lifeline is standing in an empty house with nothing but consequences. That is exactly where he belongs. So which one of these stories wrecked you more, the husband slowly disappearing inside his own marriage, or the family that moved a woman out in 2 hours flat? Drop it in the comments, and if you made it this far, a like and subscribe would mean a lot.